What you're about to witness isn't just another story about faith. It's proof that sometimes, in our darkest moments, when death stares us in the face and all seems lost, a single prayer can rewrite destiny. Today's story will shake your understanding of what's possible when divine intervention meets human desperation. Before we continue, leave a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I really want to see how far these powerful stories are reaching. Marcus Rodriguez had been driving the number 47 bus through the winding mountain roads outside San Diego for 15 years. And in all that time, he'd never missed a single day of work. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., his alarm would pierce through the darkness of his modest apartment, and he'd whisper the same prayer his grandmother had taught him as a child in Mexico, Holy Virgin Mary, protect me and all those in my care today. His weathered hands would trace the sign of the cross before he'd kiss the small medallion of Our Lady of Guadalupe that hung from his rear-view mirror, a gift from his late wife Elena, who had passed away 3 years earlier from cancer. That Tuesday morning in October started like any other, except for the unusual fog that clung to the mountainside like a thick blanket. Marcus had checked his bus twice during his pre-trip inspection, running his hands along the brake lines, testing the pedals, ensuring every safety feature was functioning perfectly. The mechanic, Tommy, had even joked with him, "Marcus, you check that bus more thoroughly than I do. She's in perfect condition, man. Stop worrying so much." But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that settled in his chest, a heaviness that reminded him of the morning Elena had collapsed in their kitchen. By 6:15 a.m., his bus was full of regular passengers, the early morning workers, students heading to the community college, and a group of elderly women who attended daily mass at St. Catherine's Church at the bottom of the mountain. Mrs. Chun, who always sat in the third row, smiled at him as she boarded, pressing a homemade empanada wrapped in foil into his hand. For later, Marcus, "You're too thin these days." Behind her, teenage siblings Maria and Carlos Gutierrez bickered about who would sit by the window, while their mother hushed them with tired eyes that spoke of double shifts at the hospital. The route down Highway 152 was treacherous even on clear days, with sharp curves and steep grades that dropped nearly 2,000 feet, over 7 miles. But Marcus knew every turn, every pothole, every spot where the morning sun would blind drivers coming around the bend. He'd driven this route so many times he could navigate it with his eyes closed, though he never took it for granted. The fog that morning, however, was unlike anything he'd seen before, so thick that the headlights barely penetrated 10 feet ahead. 23 souls were on that bus when Marcus pressed the brake pedal approaching the first major descent, only to feel his foot sink all the way to the floor with no resistance. His heart stopped. He pumped the pedal again. Nothing. The bus began picking up speed as gravity took hold. His training kicked in immediately as he yanked the emergency brake, but it too failed to engage. The mechanical failure was complete and catastrophic. In that split second, Marcus understood with crystal clarity that they were all going to die. "Everyone hold on," he shouted, his voice cutting through the morning chatter. The passengers looked up, confused at first, then terrified as they felt the bus accelerating unnaturally. Marcus gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, using every ounce of his strength and experience to keep the 40-foot vehicle centered on the narrow road. 60 miles per hour. 70. 80. The speedometer climbed as screams erupted behind him. Young Maria Gutierrez began crying, clutching her brother's arm so hard her nails drew blood. Mrs. Chen's lips moved in silent prayer, her rosary beads clicking frantically through her fingers. A construction worker named Jose stood up, trying to make his way to the front to help, but Marcus shouted for him to sit down and brace himself. There was nothing anyone could do. They were trapped in 40,000 pounds of metal hurtling down a mountain at speeds that would turn them into a mangled heap of steel and flesh the moment Marcus lost control. The first curve came up fast, a sharp right-hand turn that Marcus had taken thousands of times at 35 miles per hour. They were approaching it at nearly 90. Time seemed to slow as Marcus made a decision that went against every instinct in his body. Instead of trying to slow down, he accelerated into the turn, using the centrifugal force to keep the bus from tipping. The tires screamed against the asphalt, and he felt the left side of the bus lift slightly off the ground. Passengers were thrown against the windows, their screams mixing with the shriek of tortured metal. Somehow, impossibly, they made it through. But Marcus knew the worst was yet to come. 3 miles ahead lay Devil's Hairpin, a near 180-degree turn with a 500-foot drop on one side and solid rock face on the other. No vehicle had ever survived taking that turn at anything over 40 miles per hour. At their current speed, they would either smash into mountain, killing everyone instantly, or sail off the cliff into the ravine below. Either way, death was waiting at that curve. His hands trembling on the wheel, Marcus thought of Elena, of how she'd face her final moments with such grace and faith. He thought of his passengers, Mrs. Chun, who brought him food, the Gutierrez children who had their whole lives ahead of them, every soul who had trusted him with their safety. The weight of that responsibility crushed him even as the speedometer passed 100 miles per hour. "Please," he whispered, his eyes filling with tears that blurred his vision. "Holy Mother, I've never asked for much. I accepted when you took Elena. I accepted the loneliness, the pain. But these people, these innocent people, please, I'm begging you, not them. Take me if you must, but save them. Please, Virgin Mary, Mother of Miracles, I need you now. We all need you now." The medallion hanging from his mirror began to swing wildly as the bus bounced over rough patches of road. Marcus could see it in his peripheral vision, the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe seeming to glow in the dim morning light. He continued his prayer, louder now, not caring who heard him. "Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thy intercession was left unaided." Behind him, other voices joined in prayer. Spanish, English, Mandarin, Portuguese, a desperate chorus of faiths united in terror. Mrs. Chin reached across the aisle to hold hands, with a young mother clutching her infant. The Gutierrez siblings had stopped crying and were praying with their mother. Even those who hadn't prayed in years found themselves calling out to whatever power might be listening. 2 miles to Devil's Hairpin. The fog began to lift slightly, revealing the guardrail that would do nothing to stop them at this speed. Marcus could see the turn approaching, could calculate the physics of their doom with terrible precision. Yet something strange was happening. Despite the speedometer showing over 110 miles per hour, the bus didn't feel like it was moving that fast anymore. It was as if time itself was stretching, giving him more moments to react, to think, to steer. 1 mile. Marcus noticed something impossible. The fuel gauge was dropping rapidly, far faster than it should. The engine began to sputter. He hadn't touched the accelerator in minutes, yet somehow the engine was flooding itself, choking on its own fuel. The RPMs dropped suddenly, and while the bus didn't slow significantly, it stopped accelerating. They were still traveling at killing speed, but they weren't gaining any more. 1/2 mile. The morning sun broke through the fog at exactly the right angle, illuminating the road ahead with brilliant golden light. Marcus could see the curve clearly now, could see the exact line he needed to take. But more than that, he could see something else. A section of runaway truck ramp he'd never noticed before, partially hidden behind overgrown brush, extending up the mountainside at a steep angle. It was old, probably from the original highway construction decades ago, covered in deep gravel that would stop anything that hit it. But reaching it would require threading the bus through an impossibly narrow gap between the guardrail and the cliff face. "Hold on," Marcus shouted, cranking the wheel hard to the right. The bus tilted dangerously, and for a moment he thought they would roll. But the weight distribution held, and they shot toward the hidden ramp at an angle that defied physics. The left side of the bus scraped against a guardrail in a shower of sparks, while the right mirror was torn off by the rock face. They had cleared the gap by less than 3 inches on either side. The bus hit the gravel ramp with tremendous force, throwing everyone forward against their seats. The deep gravel grabbed at the tires like quicksand, and the bus began to slow dramatically. 50 miles per hour, 40, 30. The engine died completely, and they rolled to a stop halfway up the ramp, the bus tilting at such an angle that passengers had to hold on to their seats to keep from sliding. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then Mrs. Chin began to sob, followed by others as the reality of their survival sank in. Marcus sat frozen at the wheel, his hand still gripping it so tightly he couldn't let go. Through his tears, he looked at the medallion of Our Lady of Guadalupe, now hanging still and peaceful. The morning sun caught it just right, making it seem to smile. Emergency services arrived within minutes, alerted by multiple calls from passengers. The investigation that followed revealed a complete systematic failure of both the primary and emergency brake systems, something the mechanics said should have been impossible as they operated independently. The chance of both failing simultaneously was less than 1 in 10 million. Even more puzzling was the runaway ramp. Highway maintenance had no record of it in their current documentation. It appeared on maps from the 1950s, but was supposedly removed during road widening in 1973. Yet there was perfectly maintained despite decades of alleged non-existence, positioned at the exact spot where it could save them. The fuel system malfunction that had caused the engine to flood and die was never explained. Mechanics found nothing wrong with it when they tested it later. The fog lifting at precisely the right moment, the sun breaking through at the perfect angle to illuminate the hidden ramp. Meteorologists call it a once-in-a-lifetime atmospheric coincidence. But for the 23 souls on that bus, and for Marcus Rodriguez, there was no doubt about what had happened. The story made national news, with reporters calling it the miracle on Highway 152. Marcus was hailed as a hero, though he insisted he was just an instrument of something greater. The experience had transformed him in ways he couldn't fully articulate. The crushing loneliness he'd felt since Elena's death had lifted, replaced by a sense of purpose and connection to something beyond himself. Mrs. Chin organized a monthly dinner where all the survivors would gather at her restaurant. The Gutierrez children, who had been struggling in school, suddenly excelled, with Maria eventually earning a scholarship to study medicine and Carlos becoming an engineer. Every passenger reported life changes, broken relationships healed, new opportunities arising, a deeper appreciation for each moment they'd been given. Marcus continued driving the number 47 route for 10 more years before retiring. He never removed Elena's medallion from his mirror, and he never stopped saying his morning prayer. On his final day of work, the city presented him with a commendation for his service, but what touched him most was when Maria Gutierrez, now Dr. Maria Gutierrez, showed up with her own children to ride his last route. "You saved us all that day," she told him, tears in her eyes. "But more than that, you showed us that miracles are real, that faith isn't foolish, and that sometimes in our darkest moments, we're never truly alone." Marcus smiled, his weather hand touching medallion one last time. "I didn't save anyone," he said quietly. "I just held the wheel and trusted. The rest, well, that was something far greater than any of us." The hidden ramp on Highway 152 was officially added back to highway documentation and upgraded with modern safety features. A small plaque was installed at its entrance, reading simply, "Sometimes angels leave their tools behind for those who need them." Every year on the anniversary of that October morning, flowers appear at the site, roses, marigolds, and white lilies, left by 23 grateful souls who know that their survival was more than coincidence, more than luck. Marcus Rodriguez passed away peacefully in his sleep 5 years after retirement. The medallion of Our Lady of Guadalupe clutched in his hand at his funeral. The church overflowed with people whose lives he had touched, not just the passengers from that fateful day, but hundreds of daily riders who remembered his kindness, his dedication, and his quiet faith. The Gutierrez siblings, now adults with their own families, served as pallbearers. Mrs. Chen's granddaughter played violin, and everyone present swore they felt something in that church, a presence, a warmth, a sense that Marcus had finally reunited with his beloved Elena, and that both were watching over them still. The medallion now hangs in the St. Catherine's Church at the bottom of the mountain, encased in glass with a simple inscription. Faith moves mountains, but sometimes it just helps us navigate them safely home. If this story touched your heart, the next video on your screen will restore your faith in miracles even more. Click now to witness another incredible testament to divine intervention